How are you?
Great, Tam. Yeah, oh, this is awesome. Thanks for doing this and connecting today.
My pleasure. It's always my pleasure to talk to you. You always have the most interesting things to say.
No pressure.
So I figured that today we're gonna talk about the NFT, the first birthday NFT that you did for Rally, as an example of I love how you're using your community to democratize the future of work for graphic designers all around the world. So hopefully you can tell me a little bit about how that commission process was a first for you and your community, um, regarding commissions for NFTs, and how you see that in terms of like creating a future within your community.
Absolutely. I think, first of all, we have a passion around creating a community that's very design led. And there's lots of definitions of we're creatives, we're creators, we're artists. I think, our field, our swim lane, and the things that we understand very well is the design community. And we believe that in this new creator economy, which is obviously growing rapidly by the day, that there's a particular cohort within there um, that we feel should also have the opportunity to experiment and monetize and show their kind of superpowers in design, but within this new emerging NFT space. So for us, I guess a design-led platform or community, and our goal is to redefine a new creative economy for that group.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I've been using your example with every single person I talk to, just how you outsource and crowdsource creativity, and how that creates an environment in which all of your designers are learning one from another. So if you can give us like the story of how you presented this opportunity of like Rally's first birthday NFT to your community, and what was the reception, and what do you think were the different interpretations around it?
Absolutely. And the fact that it was marking your first birthday is such an important milestone. In many ways, it was an important milestone for our community and for KnownUnknown as a team, because it was our first invitation. So we will never forget this project because of that. So, lots of experiments going on in different ways, in different, worlds every day. But for this is like, we check the box of, we engaged with our community for the very first time, to test their temperature, to see, see who's willing to look at a brief like this and an opportunity, or more like a creative challenge. So that was our kind of approach as well. Rather than normally, sometimes we dial in some of our more known, kind of creatives that we've worked with in the past, or maybe they're part of my Rolodex. I've known them for years. That's kind of an easy approach, and it's a very tried and tested approach, of course. What we really wanted to do here was to see almost kind of like who would take the challenge, who's interested, and there's several factors. Are they interested in this as a new canvas? Do they have the time? Does the brief feel rich? There's an opportunity to be rewarded in a new way, and those types of things really felt extremely different to a normal design community engagement, where it's a traditional client, and here's the brief, and here's the contract, and here's the kind of the deliverables. Clearly, there's some things that needed to be delivered, but what was really exciting was the reaction from the community over this type of brief, this type of project, which we'd never done before. So hugely enthusiastic, lots of energy, lots of comments in the back channels and DMs. Sadly, some people were either traveling on other projects as well, but the wave of excitement in those individuals that took part was clear to see for us in a fairly short timeline, but something that for us is a huge experience in how to present this. But we were pleased because the community felt really engaged too.
Amazing. And what do you think about, the proposals that you received? Did you show us all the proposals? Were there more proposals, or like specifically, to the results of all of the proposals that we shared with our own community that came from yours?
Yeah, there's some that we held back only because there were more options. We didn't necessarily want to be judge and jury. That was your role to decide. I think what was interesting is, as designers, we are trained to create something for a brand that represents the brand. So, kind of like some individuals go straight to your identity. And I think that's kind of part of the training of a brand designer, to be somewhat visually consistent. So there's recognition and so a level of like, oh yeah, I know who that's from. So there's that kind of like connective tissue. I think what was interesting about maybe the outcome was it moved left field from just purely being on brand. It was on brand, like there's a little connection there, but a little bit more off brand as well. Off brand meaning kind of further out. So I think that was a really interesting insight or feedback or decision that you guys made that will also be important in the future as well. But I love the fact that that's where you arrived, because if anything, Tam, that gives me the belief that in this space, in the future, hopefully we do this again, there feels like there's the potential for more creative freedom than our, quote, 9-to-5 brand design role where we're working consistently for brands, and with that come a huge set of rules. So the freedom feels like very, very attractive too.
I love that you say that, because this is like totally what I live for. Like my specific passion is like the intersection between art and other industries. So for me, working with you on this specific first year commission was like, my background is in art and curation, and yours is in design. So I love pushing the boundaries of how you work and trying to give you that freedom, but also learning from you in how you analyzed the Rally brand and included so many aspects of the Rally brand within an artistic design. And to talk a little bit more about the neon celebration piece that we selected, it, for me, like that was a piece that really spoke to me because it was hyper realistic, and that sense of hyper realism that is computer created gives me like such a powerful sense of like what's going on right now in the world, in the crypto art movement, in like this generational voice of like us needing that reality connection, but at the same time creating online communities, which is such like the ethos of what we were going for. And neon is always like timeless, it's fun, it's celebratory, it feels alive, and it feels like it could become something that can be real in the future. And it says, it has the Rally signature without being, a brand asset that came from an agency.
I agree. I think there's something really special about, and I almost start with the name. Another really interesting kind of output. Some designers name things and almost want to give it that title, like an artist would name a canvas. So the fact that neon was in the title, but also the word possibilities, is just like all of a sudden my mind thinks of, okay, where could this go beyond just the visual articulation in the NFT, because you're saying much more in the name. But neon is such a, in many ways a traditional, in the sense I think of going to a bar and it says Budweiser and Miller and maybe even Coca-Cola, and something that like is kind of ever present in a traditional retail or drugstore, or like say a bar or a pizza mom and pop. And so it's grounded in something that feels familiar, but at the same time it's surprising because it's kind of it's not real. It's not a traditional brand doing their thing. It has a kind of a structure and a symmetry, and it almost kind of like concentrically releases an energy that feels very not physical and traditional, more very digital. It's passing through, and then that could, in theory, be endless. That can go anywhere in the world after that point.
Wow, I love to hear your interpretation of it. And how do you see, if you've thought of this at all, like a utility for an NFT like that? Like, how would you, if you had to imagine like the future of this NFT, of its roadmap, what it looks like, what would you envision this could be?
I mean, okay, the easy one is when we all get back to normal and I visit your amazing Raleigh office, to see that in reception would be on the wall. So the actual neon version, the one of one. But looking at it from above, what is the does this become a city? Is this a building or a kind of a central location, and then there are roads and pathways to that, either digital pathways or real physical? So it's kind of like this, I don't use the kind of like, temple that we're all looking for. And that actually can just be a community. That doesn't need to be something physical and brick and mortar. It's just the coming together from many different parts of this world that we're in, and that we have something in common. And that something in common is in the center, the bullseye, but in your case, the spark. And in that sense, I think there's a togetherness that I see. How could that be manifested in other ways beyond the neon? Maybe there's a kind of a NFT for 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, but there's always that central focal point. But what happens around that will change, but there's a kind of a common thread. So I do think there's potential for this, and definitely I want the t-shirt, but for this to live in a graphic form, in a physical form, in other ways to animate. What if we rotated and we saw different angles of it rather than as well as just face on? So got close to it and really got intimate with some of the detail within it. So it's like different chapters of a book rather than just a single piece.
Yeah, I love the spark as like the symbol of what unites all of us in this stage of the Raleigh community, which is, the spark of creativity, of believing in this creativity and believing in all of our creators and the people in their communities that are supporting this creativity, and the spark of like minting a coin and being able to unite us and to support, as a symbol of like supporting each other and monetizing from it and being able to sustain this creativity alive, which is ultimately what we're all trying to do, and what we're all of our creators and all of our community members, it's the glue that holds us together.
Absolutely. The other trick, I guess, many from Coke, I guess, from my training there, but personalization of anything, right, from sneakers to Coke cans, but color can play a huge role in that. If there's a particular cohort or group or country or super fan, and they have their individual colors, how the colors could be adapted quite easily to feel a little closer to either my world, whatever world that may be, our world, the world that we in my community work in. So I think that's another really interesting space that could be explored, even with just this image as we see right now, that the color palette could be pushed or tailored to make it feel personal to a particular group or individual.
Yes, I 100%. And I love what the analysis you told me a while back when you first presented this project, in which you interpreted the spark as having 4 different C's. So I would love for you to talk a little bit more about that, specifically like when it comes to this first project being a collaboration between the Kudos community and the Rally community. You know, and collaboration being such a big part of the present and future of creative communities.
Absolutely. I think just the rounded nature of the spark versus a kind of spiky, aggressive kind of, you know, star-like, it has a very approachable form with the inline. And I think we, you know, in a quick ideation with one of the designers, he'd seen kind of like, you know, the 4 curves, obviously, you know, kind of negative space in a way that is created when you put 4 C's together, for crypto, for coin, for collaboration, for community. And all the things that you guys and Rally is embodying in its world right now, in its ecosystem. So whether that was chosen or not, there's something quite interesting about that as a reference to the language that we use, the narrative that you guys are using, but also then the visual articulation. And maybe it was kind of retrofitting those C's into your spark, but there was just a really sort of strong curved line that's coming through that identity that also could have a Easter egg messaging of those C's that actually have got meaning as well.
I love that. That was truly a serendipitous, magical moment when you explained that. I just want to repeat the C's so that like they stay almost like as our legacy coming from you. So it's like, it's crypto, it's coin, it's community, creators. Is there one in collaboration?
I mean, you and I, we can. There's some great words beginning with C that you guys already represent. So, which ones really capture the essence? Spoiled for choice. I think you could go 5 or even 6. You know, but which would be the 4 strongest? Which would be the ones that really, even in 5 years, 10 years, this is what Rally stands for. So, you know, like any other brand foundation and, you know, with its purpose and its mission, it should be the same in 20 years as it is today. So I think that's a kind of great lens from which to maybe decide together, or you guys would write that script. But, you know, so maybe one of those C's, C number 5, kind of like we park that over there because these 4 are our strongest.
Yeah, crypto for creative communities and coin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Is there anything else that you would like to share about this project, this experience, your community, for the purpose of this interview?
Yeah, well, I think firstly our gratitude, and maybe as a you know, as a message back to the community, we would love if you, Tam, or if there's anyone else that you feel would just kind of do a 30-second on the phone clip just to say, hey, this is awesome, because we want to post that. You know, I think the one thing that we believe will differentiate the KnownUnknown community, this global network, is when, yes, we want to leverage the crypto economy and work in new ways, meaningful new ways, but ultimately it's about building stronger connections and meaningful conversations. And so that, even though, you know, that's a post like we do every day on different channels, it's a very meaningful post. Not necessarily to a thank you post, more of a, this is what it means to us. And I think that would go such a long way to people who participated, but also people who maybe couldn't quite get to the, I should tell you, people were emailing me after the event. Is this still open? Is the window still open? Did I miss it? I was tied up. I was offline. I was traveling. So, you know, there was kind of like a post group of people that unfortunately, you know, we had a cutoff date, and so we're still creating an energy even after the event. But anything that you guys would catch, say a 30-second clip, would be amazing to keep that conversation and that sense of connectivity.
I'm gonna send you that clip because I have a lot of thoughts around it. I still go back even after we selected, and I look at all the submissions, and I love, that's one of my favorite things to do in general, just like do open calls of art and just see how different artists and different minds analyze the same thing and how they interpret, you know, a specific set of guidelines. So I think that I'll be happy to send you a clip with
Perfect.
my
You.
break and my thoughts.
That's great.
Okay.
And then